You guys know this is the end of the season for me, certainly for RC as well. I'm taking a break, won't be on TV for a long time, but just want to say thank you to guys, Stephen A. Miles, Shannon, for a great season. Love being with you guys. I love y'all. Never know what the future holds, but I'm taking a break, and sure RC is as well. So just want to say thank you. Appreciate you guys so much.
The worldwide leader in woke is quickly becoming the worldwide leader in fear. There was rampant speculation last week that Dan Orlovsky was leaving ESPN, speculation that was confirmed by Dan Orlovsky himself, as he all but admitted that he didn't know if he was returning to the network. Now, in terms of ratings, losing Dan Orlovsky, that's no big deal. But in terms of actual NFL analysis, which, as you guys know, analysis, that is something that is sorely missing from a network that is supposedly priding itself as being the leader in sports. But in terms of analysis, Dan Orlovsky is one of the few good ones at ESPN, and I don't say that about very many people at the worldwide leader in woke. Most of the on-air talent at ESPN is absolutely detestable. According to the media, there is heightened levels of insecurity at ESPN. There's an increased fear, and it's not just with people working behind the camera. The so-called stars at the network, they are supposedly worried about their jobs, and with good reason. Over the last few years, we have seen dozens of high-profile personalities fired by ESPN. Bob Griffin the Trace, Zach Lowe, arguably the best NBA insider they had. Well, Casey, what about Shams Charania? He is great! Yeah, Shams is okay, but all he does is break news. He's like the librarian in elementary school. He simply reads text messages on his phone to the dwindling audience at ESPN. No disrespect to Shams Charania, but anyone with the contacts that you make working at ESPN could do that job. Zach Lowe, he provided actual value. Over the last few years, we have seen ESPN fire veteran employees like Kenny Mayne, Susie Colbert, a veteran sideline reporter, Steve Young, Max Kellerman. Hell, some people believe that Max Kellerman got kicked off of First Take because he was significantly smarter than Stephen A. Smith. Apparently, Stevie did not like to be challenged. I always thought the best version of First Take was with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless. Stevie and Maxie, they were okay. Their marriage, it wasn't as passionate as the marriage between Stevie and Skippy, but it was damn sure better than the current iteration of First Take, which consists mainly of everyone agreeing with each other. Think about it. The arguments on First Take, they used to generate headlines daily throughout the mainstream media. Now, you barely hear about it because it's nothing but turtle doves and woke hugs. Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson. What about Father Jalen Rose, former lead pastor at Woke United Methodist? Ever since the firing of Father Jalen, the congregation in Bristol, they have been without a spiritual leader. If the lead pastor at Woke United Methodist can get fired by the worldwide leader in woke, no one is safe. No one is untouchable. The onslaught of firings at ESPN, it's created this culture of fear. Fear is very effective if you're working for the mafia, extortion, loan sharking, gambling, unions. Damn near every mafia racket is effective because it's based on fear. But oftentimes, fear is not an effective motivator in the corporate world. It's hard to get maximum efficiency out of your employees if they are constantly afraid of losing their job. Hard to create entertaining, captivating content when people are afraid to speak their minds. According to Bill Simmons, there is a palpable level of insecurity at ESPN that has never been there before. For decades, it was common for people to feel secure at the network. If you reached legendary status, you basically had a job at ESPN for life. But now, even those who have reached legendary status are allegedly worried about their position. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Earlier this morning on the second channel, talked about the Grizzlies potentially trading Ja Morant this summer. I think there is this shift right now in the NBA where owners are trying to take back their power. Players who were once viewed as untouchable are now at risk of being traded. I explain why in the video, so head over to the second channel and subscribe. Headline at Awful Announcing. ESPN employees feeling unprecedented insecurity after layoffs. Later this year, ESPN is launching a standalone streaming service. Well, KC, I thought they already had a streaming service that was a huge embarrassing failure. Yeah, they do. ESPN Plus. I guess they are revitalizing ESPN Plus and making it identical to the ESPN that you watch on cable. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the launch of this streaming service, it could lead to talent departures. ESPN wants to create a personalized sports center. Now, from my understanding, it would give you highlights and analysis for the teams that you care about. This personalized sports center, it would be generated by AI, meaning there would be no need for on-air talent. I'm sure that's another thing leading to the culture of fear at ESPN. Last quarter, profit declined by 6% at ESPN. They claimed that higher programming costs ate into their profits. ESPN is also losing billions because cable and satellite companies are losing subscribers. For decades, ESPN has been able to survive off of this artificial bubble. Now, they are being forced to survive based on their value. And outside of live sports, ESPN provides very little value. Throughout my lifetime, people who don't give a shit about sports have made ESPN rich. For example, if my wife wants Bravo included in our satellite package so she can watch the real yentas of Yugoslavia, the satellite provider, they would bundle ESPN in that package. ESPN's always been the most expensive network on cable. While other networks might charge $2, $3 per subscriber every month, ESPN, they were charging over $10 a subscriber. Even though maybe 2 or 3 million subscribers actually watched ESPN, there were 100 million subscribers paying for it. Those days are over, which is why ESPN is trying to move to streaming and charge $30 a month for access. How many of you guys are willing to pay $30 every month for access to ESPN? Now you got to remember, most people are already paying for Netflix, Hulu. Maybe you have Disney for the kids. People are paying for YouTube, HBO Max. Not to mention the fact that you have to have an internet connection for access. We are reaching a point where streaming is becoming just as expensive, maybe even more expensive than cable. So how many of you are willing to pay $30 every month for ESPN? I know one thing for sure. It's not going to be 100 million of you. It won't be 50 million. I don't even know if it would be 30 million. Right now, ESPN Plus has less than 25 million subscribers. But those people, they're paying $12 a month. How many are going to be willing to basically triple that amount just to keep ESPN? Are you starting to understand now why people at ESPN are worried about their jobs? When ESPN was pulling in billions from cable and satellite, one of the things that happened is they started overvaluing and overpaying their talent. When the truth is, there are very few people at ESPN that actually draw ratings. And when I say very few, you can probably count them on one hand. Pat McAfee's making $17 million a year. He can't draw flies to a fresh turd on television. But ESPN is supposedly happy with Pat McAfee because he delivers a younger audience and he does well on streaming. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying the fact that Stephen A. Smith is a draw. Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon, they're the highest rated show at the network. Shannon Sharp, hey, it's me, Shay Shay! When the grown man who calls himself Shay is on First Take, it's the most watched episodes of the week, which makes me wonder, especially with his contract expiring, how much does ESPN really need Stephen A. Smith? Outside of that handful of dudes, no one else at ESPN is drawing an audience. Kendrick Perkins, he's making between $2 and $3 million a year. You really think people would quit watching ESPN if Kendrick Perkins was fired? Mina Kimes is making around $2 million a year. Do I even need to explain? Do I really need to explain why a pretend NFL analyst might not be worth $2 million a year? Mina Kimes has the largest sports media machine promoting her. She's got less than 67,000 subscribers on YouTube. Since November of 2023, what is that, about 16 months? Her channel has generated less than 10 million views. Uncle KC had 23 million views last year. Do you really think ratings for NFL Live would suffer if Mina Kimes was off the show? Hell, they'd probably go up. If ESPN hired an actual NFL analyst, people might tune into that polished turd. How long has Mina Kimes been at ESPN? 10 years now? Have you ever wondered why Mina Kimes has never been given her own show? ESPN pays Chris Russo $400,000 a year to appear on First Take once a week. Now, I like Chris Russo, but he's not moving the needle. People aren't tuning into First Take because Chris Russo's on the show. People are tuning in because they're going to watch regardless, which is exactly my point. And it's likely why there is unprecedented fear at ESPN, because the vast majority of on-air talent, they know when you compare their salary to their ratings, when you compare their salary to their results, they are overpaid. If ESPN is looking for cost-cutting suggestions, Uncle KC's got a good idea. If you want to save money, get rid of Molly Karam, the insufferable host of First Take, who thinks she's the star of the show. Let me show you something. Yesterday morning, First Take was talking about the NHL. As you guys know, it is rare for ESPN to talk about the NHL, even though they pay millions of dollars every year to broadcast their games. But the NHL's on fire right now, so they were talking about it on First Take. ESPN brought in the real experts for this hockey discussion. Chris Russo. Fair enough. But then they had Monica McDougal, who would be overpaid at ESPN if she was making minimum wage. And they had Molly Karam, the supposed host, talking about the NHL. Listen to her expert analysis. Listen to her infinite wisdom. Watch it for yourself.
It's just interesting to me that certain sports you're allowed to fight and other sports could never happen.
And by the way,
optics! It's just a little hypocrisy.
I am not going to insult your intelligence. I am not going to waste your time disproving that stupidity. I'm not going to waste your time explaining why there are fights in hockey and why it has absolutely nothing to do with mythical racism. I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you willing to pay $30 a month for that? Are you willing to pay $30 a month for pretend analyst Mina Kimes? Are you willing to pay $30 a month to listen to Monica McDougal call you a misogynist because you're not a fan of the pretend basketball in the WNBA? You tell me, are you willing to pay for the garbage that ESPN is offering? Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.